When Jack and Mindy wanted a baby of their own, they tried for several months, but it didn't work out. They decided to go to the doctor for a checkup. To their surprise, the doctor told them that he would strongly advise them not to have a baby. Mindy is 45 years old, and he strongly doubts that she is capable of carrying a child. Jack and Mindy had thought long and hard about the doctor's advice. They knew he had a point, but they still couldn't get the thought out of their minds. They wanted nothing more than to have a child of their own. Adoption had always been in the back of their minds, but they just couldn't get excited about that option. And so they knew they had to take drastic measures. Since the doctor, and most likely the entire official medical sector, did not want to help them conceive, they had very few options. They could keep trying and hope that one day they would be successful. An option that seemed the easiest, but also had a very low chance of success, because they had been trying for a long time. And so the couple knew that they would most likely have to find alternative ways to get help conceiving. And so they spend many evenings searching online for options. After a lot of back and forth, discussion, and weighing the risks, they finally settled on an option. This seemed like just what they needed. They had found online advertisements from a woman claiming to be a retired doctor. Her goal was to help couples realize their biggest dream, becoming pregnant under any circumstances. She had essentially left the medical profession because she found them too strict in their requirements for couples wanting a baby. And on top of that, she had quite a few reviews, and they were all very positive. It all seemed too good to be true, but Jack and Mindy hardly thought about it. All they could focus on was the thought of starting the path to their own child soon. And so, they quickly made an appointment with the busy Dr. Melinda. They were supposed to meet her in a week for an initial appointment, and from there they could get the process started. And everything went very smoothly from their first appointment with Dr. Melinda. She saw absolutely no reason why Jack and Mindy wouldn't have a baby. She checked them both, and even though Mindy did indeed have a normal chance of pregnancy due to her age, she could easily get pregnant with her special procedure. Dr. Melinda actually described it as a fairly standard insemination procedure, but she had some of her own non-conventional methods, which apparently gave her a much higher success rate than usual. She took a week to prepare, and when Mindy finally got to work, the process was over in a matter of minutes. And Dr. Melinda was clearly very skilled in her craft, as it was an instant success on the first try. Jack and Mindy were overjoyed when they saw the first positive pregnancy test. Now, all they had to do was carry the baby to term, and to help with this, they decided to go back to the hospital that had initially refused to help them because of Mindy's age. They didn't tell the doctor about Dr. Melinda's involvement, only claiming that they had finally gotten lucky. The doctor was still hesitant about carrying Mindy to term, but when the couple made it clear that abortion was not an option, he was naturally very willing to help. To ensure the baby's health, many regular checkups are needed. The first few checkups were obviously the most nerve-wracking, as this was the time when something was most likely to go wrong. And in these months, they would also be able to determine if the baby would develop defects or other problems. At every checkup, they feared the worst. But all they seemed to get was good news. As far as the doctors could determine, everything looked good. There didn't seem to be any problems or complications, and the pregnancy went as expected. It even got to a point where the doctor apologized for not wanting to help them conceive at the time. However, the doctor didn't see everything that triggered the pregnancy. Mindy was hiding something from him. Besides Dr. Melinda's involvement, the pregnancy took a toll on her body. With each passing week, she began to feel more and more the effects of the fact that a human being was growing inside her. Jack did everything he could to help her, but it was hard for a while. It got to a point where they simply couldn't hide the truth from the doctor anymore. He was very worried and wished they had told him sooner. Of course, the termination of the pregnancy was put on the table by him, and even Jack started to think about whether it meant that Mindy would be okay. But she had none of it. Her biggest dream was to bring a child into this world, and they wouldn't take that away from her, not when they were so close. And so, it was decided to keep the baby, and Mindy would have to spend the last 2 months of her pregnancy in the hospital, under strict surveillance. And this cost the couple a pretty penny. Jack paced around the living room, deep in thought. The hospital bills hung over them like a dark cloud. "What if we take out a second mortgage?" he suggested to Mindy, who looked just as worried. The risk was high, but so was the necessity. Their future, the future of their family, depended on this crucial decision. With a heavy heart, Jack signed the papers for the second mortgage. The weight of financial worries weighed on him, but there was also a glimmer of hope. This wasn't just a debt. It was a step towards securing the life they dreamed of with their child. "It's for Noah," he told himself, trying to lighten the load. As they sat together, Jack and Mindy were confronted with the harsh reality of their situation. "This is going to be hard," Jack admitted, looking at the rising bills. "But our baby is worth every sacrifice," Mindy replied, resting her hand on her belly. They knew that the road ahead would be difficult, but their unwavering devotion to their child gave them strength. The nursery was ready, and so were their hearts. As Mindy's due date approached, the anticipation fulfilled their home. Each day that passed brought them closer to meeting their son. They often paused at the door of the nursery and imagined the laughter and love that would soon fill the room. Noah, their little miracle, was almost there. The moment had finally arrived. After an hours-long delivery, the doctors decided to perform a cesarean section. Jack held Mindy's hand tightly and offered silent support. When the cry of their son, Noah, rang through the room, their hearts swelled with indescribable joy. The journey had been full of challenges, but holding Noah in their arms made every struggle worthwhile. Mindy's condition was fragile and teetering on the edge of criticism. Every day in the hospital brought its own challenges and small victories. As Jack watched over her, he noticed a subtle power return to her eyes. It was slow, but it was there. The recovery was uncertain, but signs of hope were beginning to cut through the worries that had clouded their days. In the sterile hospital room, amidst beeping monitors and busy nurses, Jack and Mindy found their oasis. As they held Noah, they felt an indescribable bond form. Every little gesture, every little yawn from Noah was a moment of pure joy. These early days of parenthood were, under the watchful eye of the medical staff, filled with awe and love for their new family. The day they had to leave the hospital came, brighter than they had seen in a long time. Now that Noah was safe in his carriage and Mindy was steadily regaining her strength, they stepped out into the world as a united family. The air outside seemed fresher, filled with the promise of new beginnings and happy memories to come. They were ready to start this new chapter together. As they crossed the threshold of their home, Jack and Mindy felt an overwhelming sense of joy and relief. They had imagined this moment countless times, and now it was real. Noah was finally home. When they placed him in the nursery they had lovingly decorated, the house seemed to embrace them again, as the walls whispered a warm welcome to the newest member of their family. The first few days at home were a whirlwind of learning and adjusting. Mindy, still recovering, showed a resilience that Jack admired more by the day. As they adjusted to the rhythm of caring for Noah, their home filled with the soft sounds of a sleeping baby and the quiet conversations of two people that grew into their roles as parents. Together, they found their way. The night was a patchwork of feedings, diaper changes, and soothing murmurs. Jack and Mindy, propelled by a mix of love and caffeine, navigated this new nocturnal world. Every cry from Noah was a call to action, leaving them exhausted but determined. Sleep was transient and the nights were long, but they looked at each other yawn by yawn. Feeding Noah was an art and a science, with Jack and Mindy learning it quickly. Bottles, temperatures, and farming techniques. Every day brought new lessons. They celebrated the small victories, such as a successful diet or a burp that meant relief. Every hiccup and giggle from Noah was a sign that they were doing it right, one food at a time. Early parenthood was a ride of exhilarating highs and exhausting lows. Joy bubbled up at Noah's first smile, and with each new cough or cry, fear crept in. Jack and Mindy went along with this wave of emotions, sometimes laughing, crying, always loving. Every day was unpredictable, but their unwavering devotion to Noah kept them through the stormiest moments. As the days turned to nights, Jack and Mindy searched for a new normal. Schedules were drawn up, which then had to be rewritten. Household chores alternated between feedings and naps. They found moments of calm in the chaos, learned to prioritize and adapt. Balance was elusive, but step by step, they found their footing in this new dance of family life. Amidst the whirlwind of early parenthood, Jack and Mindy found places of pure bliss. Noah's soft breathing as he slept, the way his little hand held a finger, the soft cooing that filled the quiet moments. These fleeting moments were treasures, reminders of the deep love and joy that Noah brought into their lives, making every challenge worth it. Jack sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by bills and statements. Every envelope he opened contributed to the growing mountain of debt. The numbers were stark and unforgiving. He felt the weight of financial responsibility weigh on him. The second mortgage, the medical bills, and the day-to-day expenses all demanded attention. The reality of their situation was disheartening, a numerical testament to the sacrifices they had made for their families. Financial pressures began to permeate every conversation, turning discussions into arguments. "We need to cut back," Jack insisted, his voice strained with concern. Mindy, momentarily stressed, shot back. "We're already doing everything we can." Their shared dreams had turned into shared burdens, and the pressure tested the strength of their bond. Each tense exchange left emotional scars as they struggled with their new reality. Jack's days became a juggling game, balancing deadlines at work and the needs of the family. He rushed from meetings to diaper changes, from conference calls to children's appointments. Exhaustion was his constant companion, his thoughts a jumble of tasks and worries. The delicate balance between breadwinner and current father was a tightrope walk, with each step requiring his utmost care and attention. Desperate for relief, Jack and Mindy explored every option. They consulted financial advisors, attended budget workshops, and scoured the internet for tips. Garage sales, freelance work, and anything that could lighten the load were considered. Every small step forward was a victory, but the road to financial stability was long and winding. Together, they clung to hope, determined to find a way through the storm. Temporary solutions brought brief moments of peace, a successfully negotiated payment plan, a few extra dollars from a side hustle. These small victories helped lighten the mood, but the underlying tension remained. Jack and Mindy smiled and celebrated the postponement, but the fragility of their situation was always lurking, a silent ghost in their moments of momentary harmony. Jack observed Noah intently, and a gnawing sense of unease grew inside him. He noticed subtle differences, a look in Noah's eyes, the shape of his smile, that didn't quite match his or Mindy's features. These observations were dismissed as jitters for new dads, but deep down, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Seeking reassurance, Jack shared his thoughts with friends and family. "You think about it too much," they said, blaming it on a lack of sleep and the usual worries of parents. Their words were meant to comfort, but they only exacerbated Jack's isolation. He smiled and nodded, but inside, the seed of doubt had already taken root and was beginning to germinate. Alone with his thoughts, Jack struggled with a torrent of emotions. Guilt, confusion, and a sense of betrayal swirled inside him. He loved Noah, there was no doubt about that, but the unspoken questions turned into a silent scream in his head. He felt trapped in a labyrinth of uncertainty, with no clear way out. Jack's growing doubts began to cast a shadow over his interactions with Noah. He found himself hesitating a split second longer before picking it up, with a slight reluctance in his touch. He hated himself for it, because of the uncertainty that crept into the space between their laughter and love. It was a subtle shift, but it was there. Jack kept his turbulent thoughts to himself and built a facade of normalcy. He smiled, he played, and he cared for Noah, while the turmoil raged unseen. It was a silent battle, one he fought behind the smile and the bedtime story. To the world, he was a loving father, but beneath the surface a storm was brewing. Under the glow of the computer screen, Jack delved into the world of genetics. He scoured forums, read articles, and watched videos, trying to understand the nuances of inheritance. Each click led him deeper into a maze of information. It was a search for the truth, driven by a growing distrust that would not be silenced by simple explanations. Jack's initial curiosity turned into an all-consuming fixation. Nights were spent comparing photographs, reading medical journals, and analyzing facial features. The more he learned, the more he needed to know. It was like trying to solve a puzzle, but with each piece he fit into place, the overall picture became more unsettling. During his relentless search, Jack stumbled upon a forum where genetic abnormalities were discussed. As he read the stories, a chilling pattern began to emerge. There were others, like him, with doubts and fears. Each story was a piece of the puzzle he was desperately trying to solve, and with each story, his suspicions grew stronger. With each passing day, Jack's research brought him closer to a conclusion he dreaded. The similarities between the stories he read and his own experiences were uncanny. It was no longer just about subtle differences. It was about undeniable truths that were hidden in plain sight. He was almost understanding, and yet a part of him was afraid of what that understanding would bring. It was in the quiet hours of the night that Jack's search led him to a breakthrough. A certain article clicked into place, and suddenly it all made sense. The weight of the realization hit him like a wave. His worst fears were confirmed, not by suspicion or doubt, but by cold, hard facts. At that moment, his world changed forever. In the digital maze of Dr. Melinda's Facebook group, Jack discovered a disturbing pattern. Posts and comments from other parents revealed eerily similar stories to his own. Pictures of children who were so different from their parents stared back at him, and each photo sent a shiver down his spine. These weren't just coincidences, they were clues that pointed to a hidden truth. Each new post Jack read in the group only added to his unease. Discrepancies between parents and their children became impossible to ignore. Comments about confusion and subtle grief reflected his own fears. Each story added an extra layer of mistrust to the growing pile. Jack knew he couldn't dismiss these patterns as mere anomalies. Something sinister was going on. The weight of what he had discovered fueled a determination in Jack. He could not sit back and let his doubts fester. He needed answers. It was time to move from observer to researcher. With determined breathing, Jack began to plot out his course of action. The truth was there, and he would find it, no matter what the cost. Jack began to meticulously gather information. He took screenshots, took notes, and reached out to others in the group. Each piece of data was a potential key to unraveling the mystery. Conversations with other parents, research into the background of Dr. Melinda, and medical records became his arsenal. He built his business piece by piece and prepared for the coming confrontation. With the evidence in hand, Jack prepared himself mentally and emotionally for what was to come. He knew that confronting the reality of Noah's birth would change everything. It was a frightening prospect, but Jack was determined to rise to the challenge. He braced himself for confrontation, knowing that the truth would shake the foundations of his world. Under a veil of secrecy, Jack arranged DNA testing for himself, Mindy, and Noah. His heart pounded as he collected the samples, each smear getting one step closer to the truth he feared. It was done silently, without alarming Mindy, for he knew that the results could destroy the fragile piece to which they had clung since the birth of Noah. Waiting for the DNA results was painful. Each day stretched into eternity, filled with fear and hope in equal measure. Jack's mind haunted the possible outcomes, while the uncertainty gnawed at him. He tried to maintain some semblance of normalcy for Mindy and Noah, but the wait was like a slow-burning fuse, leading to an explosive truth. When the results finally came in, Jack's hands were shaking as he opened the envelope. The numbers and scientific jargon boiled down to a simple, horrifying truth. Noah was not his biological child. The revelation came as a physical blow and left him reeling. The doubts that had haunted him were now confirmed, and the foundation of his world was shaken. Jack struggled with a maelstrom of emotions. Betrayal, anger, and an overwhelming sadness washed over him in waves. He looked at Noah, his son, in every way but genetically, and his heart ached. How could he reconcile this love with the lies that were woven around his birth? The struggle consumed him, a restlessness that surpassed all understanding. Amid his emotional storm, Jack's resolve hardened. He could not leave this deception unchallenged. He planned to confront Melinda, demand answers, and hold her accountable. It was more than just a personal quest. It was a fight for justice for Noah and for any family that might have fallen victim to her unethical practices. With a storm in his heart, Jack confronted Dr. Melinda in her office. His voice was determined, his evidence unmistakable. He demanded explanations for the discrepancies, for the pain inflicted. Dr. Melinda, once a beacon of hope, now sat across from him, the architect of his family's turmoil. This was the moment of truth, the moment to face the creator of their rolling camera heartache. Dr. Melinda's eyes didn't hesitate as she revealed the staggering truth. Her methods, unorthodox and unethical, were designed to ensure successful pregnancies, using genetic material from unrelated donors. The revelation sent shockwaves through Jack. The foundation of their family, the essence of Noah's identity, was built on a lie that had been carefully orchestrated and hidden. While the confession of Dr. Melinda was in the air, Jack felt a torrent of emotions coming at him. Anger, betrayal, and disbelief fought for dominance. He had trusted her and believed in her promise of a miracle. Now that trust was violated and replaced by a deep sense of violation. The woman before him was a stranger, and her actions were a devastating blow to the integrity of his family. With a heavy heart, Jack returned home to share the devastating news with Mindy. The conversation was one of the most difficult they had ever had, full of tears, questions, and raw emotions. Mindy's shock mirrored his, her pain evident in every word. Together, they navigated the waves of disbelief, trying to make sense of the unimaginable betrayal they had endured. In the days that followed, Jack and Mindy were confronted with the harsh reality of their situation, the deceit, the lies, the ethical violations. It was all overwhelming. Yet, in the midst of the storm, they found a beacon of light, their love for Noah. Despite the circumstances of his birth, their son was theirs in every way. Together, they chose love over bitterness and embraced Noah as their property.